Welcome to Roblox Snippets. If you'd like to learn how to create an overhead GUI that displays custom messages to your players, keep watching and I'll show you exactly how to do it. In this video I'll show you how to create the overhead GUI for a start, and then we will write some code that will let you decide when you show the GUI and how you use it. So as a bit of a model, what we'll do is we'll start in our workspace and create just a part in our workspace, and just come over to the part, and we will make use of this. So scroll down to in its properties, and we'll make it anchored, and we'll also change its size back up here, and we'll just make it say 6 by 0.5 by 6, and you can also just change its color to something that you like. Alright, so we'll just make this blue. So this is where we're going to create or style our GUI. So on the part, once you've clicked on the part, click on the plus sign next to it, and in the search box type GUI. Now you'll come up with a bunch of GUIs that are available in here, and we have the Billboard GUI. So go ahead and left click on Billboard GUI to add it into the part. Alright, so nothing has happened just yet, but inside of the Billboard GUI, so we'll left click on that now, click on the plus sign next to that, and we'll now pick TextLabel. And you should find that a text label appears sort of somewhere like that on the screen. Now you'll notice when you move the camera around on the screen, or you move backwards or forwards, that the Billboard GUI adjusts itself accordingly. Alright? So, and that's part of the features of a Billboard GUI. Now we'll need to make some changes to the settings of our GUI in order for it to be a little bit more useful. So the first, the main setting that we need to change for the actual GUI, so if you click on the GUI, is scroll down in our properties down the bottom here, and we want to find studs offset. Alright, so this is going to move our GUI, and we're going to move it up by 3 studs. So change the Y value to 3, and you should see that it moves up a little bit. Okay, and if I move in closer, you'll notice that it's sort of sitting up and in the middle of our part. Alright, so of course you can play around with these and you can offset the X and the Z, etc. But for now we'll just go with this. Alright, now that we can see the writing inside, let's focus on our text label briefly. So click on the text label just like we would for anything else, and we'll scroll down right down the bottom, and we'll change our text from label in here to say, I'll type in here player name. Alright, for a start. So that might be something that you want to show, well, maybe not the player name, but their game name. And we'll scroll just in the text size. I've just, on the slider there, I've just grabbed the slider and I'm moving that around back and forward till I get it up to about a size that looks okay for the time being. Now, depending on how you want to use your overhead GUI, if you're changing the text in here, leaving the text as the one size may not be the best solution for yourself, as if you were to put a whole sentence in here, then it may disappear, but we'll deal with that a little bit later. So at the moment though, we've got a Billboard GUI set up and ready to make use of. So what we'll do is, it's very basic at the moment, but we'll take the GUI out of the part. So left click on the Billboard GUI and then right click on it and come up and cut. And we're going to come down and we're going to put it into server storage. So left click on server storage, right click and paste into. And now we'll write some code to get that functioning and onto each of our players. So come up to server script service and left click on it, and we'll add next to it a script. Alright, and we'll call this the give GUI script, because that's what we're doing. We're giving the script or the GUI to each player that enters the game. Alright, so over in our script, I'll just close these windows now so that you can see everything I'm typing. we're doing this for each of our players, so we'll add game.players.playerAdded, and then we want to connect a function and pass in each player as they enter the game. Alright, then we'll also get the character, so player.characterAppearanceLoaded, and we'll connect a function and pass in the character. Alright, so you should have two lines that look just like this. So for each player that comes in, the character gets loaded, and then we can do something with our players. So in this case, we're going to create a copy of the GUI that we placed into server storage. Now we'll need to get access to those to our GUI, so we'll create up the top here a variable for server storage, so local ss equals game and get service server storage. So once we have the server storage, we can then create a variable for the GUI inside it that we'd like to get. So local GUI equals server storage, because that's where we're looking for it. And we'll say wait for child to enable it to be loaded. And if we put inverted commas, you'll see we've got Billboard GUI, which is the only item that's in there at the moment. So we're going to hit enter and select that one. So now we have this, we want to make a copy of it for each player, and we use, down here we'll say local new GUI, alright, will be equal to our GUI up the top, so we'll think of this as our master GUI, and we use a method called clone, alright, to spawn or create a copy of that item. And below this, we can go ahead as we would with any other item and change some of its properties. So in this case, we'll say new GUI.name will be equal to head GUI, because that's where we're going to place the GUI. And new GUI.enabled will be equal to false. And new GUI.parent will be equal to, now we need to find, once the player's character has come into the game, we need to find that character in the workspace in order for us to add the GUI to their head. So the way we do that is we say game.workspace, and then we will wait for child, all right, and we'll say player.name, and once we have the player, we're looking for their head, and that is where the GUI is going to be parented to. Now I have set this to false at the moment. If you'd like, you can change this to true just for testing, but there's a reason why we're going to do that. So set that as true, and also just make sure you open up, if you haven't got your output window open down the bottom here, so view output, to check we don't have any errors, and we'll give this a test. So alright, so I've just come up and I've played the game, playing the game, and you can see my GUI has appeared above my head, enabled, and as I run around, if I move the camera up or down, or even if I move far away though, you'll notice we get this crazy big nameplate that's sort of, now if you had lots of players in here, then that would be a problem. So we're going to have a look at how do we stop that from happening, and also try to make it a little bit more useful in terms of changing the text in the next part of the video. So I'll come up here and stop this. Alright, so as I said, we're going to make use of this enabled feature here, property, so we'll change this to false. That way it won't appear straight away when the player enters the game, but it'll be there. Alright, and once you've done that in this script, we can go ahead and close that script. Alright, and I'll just give it a quick save there. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a touch script to our part here in the workspace. So I'll just come up and re-enable my windows so we can see where we're working. And we're clicking on the part here. Come up and click on the plus, and we'll add a script into the part, and we'll call this our touch script. Right, so inside of our touch script, we are going to let the player run over this part, and when they do, we're going to enable the GUI that is in their head, and we are going to show them a different message each time they do that. Alright, so to begin with, just create a variable for the part we're going to run over, which will be part equals script.parent, and just below this we're going to add another variable called db, and this is a debounce variable. Alright, debounce is the term that Roblox uses, and it is a Boolean variable, and it's used to control how many times we allow this script, or how often we allow the script to run, and I'll show you how to use that very shortly. Alright, and right below this we're going to create a table which we'll call text table, and you can add a set of squiggly brackets next to this, and we'll add 3 items in here. So we'll say, just to keep it nice and short, I'm just going to use 3 words. Okay, I'm going to use stop, and then if I come over and add a comma and another set of inverted commas, and I'll say wait, and come over and go. Now obviously you can use sentences or other things in here, but just to keep it nice and simple, 3 words separated by commas in our text table, and we'll come back and change that shortly. Alright, so they are the things we're going to make use of. Now we'll type in our variable for our part there, and we'll add the touched event, so when player touches the part, and to that we'll say connect a function, and hit is the parameter that represents what it is that hit the part. So that will be a part of the character that touches here, and we're making that assumption when we write our code because that's what we want to touch the part, right? So we'll create a variable here for our character, so local character, and it will be represented by hit.parent, because quite often it will be the character's foot or leg that touches the part, and the parent of a foot or a leg is the character themselves. Alright, so that's how we get character. And just below this we'll get the character's humanoid, so humanoid equals character, and then we will find first child, humanoid. Right, so be careful with your spelling when you do these things. So capital H, it must be a capital H. These must be capitals in here too. Alright. Below this we'll create a conditional statement now, and this is part of controlling how often the script will run. So we'll say if db, and you'll notice we've set it to true, and this conditional statement will always check if these items are true. So if db is true and humanoid, so if it is a humanoid and db is true, then the code inside here will run. So the first thing we'll do is set db to false. Alright, and that will allow us to run the rest of the code, which we'll add in a second. And then down the bottom here, after we'll say task.wait for say 2 seconds, then we'll set db equals true. So this code inside here will only be able to be run every 2 seconds each time the player touches the part. Alright, so we'll come back up here now, and we can now write the code inside here to make changes. So the first thing that we want to do is get our player's GUI. So we'll create a variable here, player head GUI, which will be equal to character, and we want to wait for child and their head, and then inside of that head GUI. So this will pause briefly here until this is loaded, so we'll have access to a head GUI, and then player head GUI dot enabled, and in this case we're going to set it to true, because remember in our script initially it was false, and when they step on it this will make it appear. And now we can change the text label inside the GUI, so player head GUI dot text label, and we're changing the text property, and the text we're putting in there will be from this text table up the top here, and we will we'll make it random. So we'll say in the text table, and we'll put a set of square brackets. And now normally you would just pick an index number, say 1, 2, or 3. But we will make it math.random, okay, between 1, which is the first item in the table, and then we will get how many items are in the table. So to count items in a table, you put a hashtag and then the name of the table. So this will pick a number between 1 and however many items, in this case 3, each time this line runs. All right, and that is everything we need to do in order to run this. So let's come up to View, and we'll just open up our output window, click on File and Save, and let's Home, come up and play, and we'll see how that runs. Alright, I'm in the game, so if I come over here now and I run on to the part, you'll see I have Go come up the top. Alright, and if I run over here, I now have Stop. And now it may come up with the same, so I've got Wait here, and if I keep running back and forward, sometimes might show the same thing twice. Alright, so Go, Wait, and it's just picking a random one each time. So let's just stop that there, and you may want to make it disappear. So the only other thing that you could do is after the wait here, is come down here, and we can add in, you can even copy this line. So copy, and paste it down here, and change it back to false. So we're turning off the head GUI. Alright, so if we run it once again, alright, you'll notice that when I run on, I'll get the head GUI and then it will disappear. And when I run on again, alright, each time it'll pick a random item. Alright, so I hope that you found that useful. Now, before we go, there is one other thing that I wanted to address, and that was the GUI being too big when you're too far away, and I'll show exactly what to do with that right now. So let's stop the game running. Alright, in order to see how this works, just you could take a copy of your GUI that is inside server storage. So simply copy it where it is and come up to your part in the workspace and then paste into. And you'll notice that it just goes in, and you can delete this afterwards once we've changed the settings. So like I said, remember when I zoomed right out, it stays the same. Now if you want it to stay the same size, you need to change items in the GUI and the label in there and how the item is sized. Okay, so click on the Billboard GUI for a start and just scroll down to where the size is. And you'll notice by default we have X and Y, and if you expand X and Y, you'll see we have scale and offset. So we want to change these. So in the offset, we want to change both of the offsets to be 0. All right, and then in the X scale, let's say we make that 8. This is for the GUI, so in the GUI, and we've changed the scale in here to say 2. Now you can make this smaller or bigger if you want, so you could make this 10 or you could make it 50 if you like, depending on how long you want to have your sentences, etc., that we're going to put inside. But for now, we'll say let's make mine 10 long, and we'll leave this at 2. Now you'll see this is still a bit messed up, and that's because the text label also needs to be changed. So once you've got the scale of X to 10 and Y scale to 2, click on the text label and scroll down to size, and we're going to do the same thing here, only it's a little bit different in this case. Alright, GUIs use whole numbers up here. However, when an item is within the GUI, we use values that are between 0 and 1. So in this case, we want to change X offset and Y offset to 0. And we want the scale of X, so how far across it is, to be completely right across. So we're going to say 1, and we'll also put 1 in for Y here as well. All right. Now, like I said earlier, having this display correctly here, you may want to, you can either make your box bigger by coming up to the GUI, or you can scroll down to the text properties and click on the text scaled box, and that will scale the box. Now, if I move away now, you'll notice I can still pivot around the part, but the GUI and the text stays the same size, and it's only when I get up close that I can actually see that. All right, which is probably much more useful for everybody if you use it like that. All right, so if you took a copy of that and placed it in here, remember you haven't changed the one in your server storage, so you may want to delete that and move this one in there, but at least you know now how to change both of them. So I hope you found that useful, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. If you found this video useful, subscribe now. For more information about my online courses, go to mrbrendanross.com.